All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we are joined by a very special guest, the former player for Davenport, now finding his place on ECL team, an NA Opper, Take Flyte number 12 in North America. On top of that, he's also a content creator, helping new or less experienced players find their way through the game, navigating through the CS landscape, with a combined 90,000 followers on Twitter, YouTube, and, well, now TikTok, the new frontier of social media. I'm joined today by CoJoMo. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, of course. Again, CoJoMo, a very fantastic guest to have on. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of your play history, about kind of how things are going. But actually, let's kind of start on a broader view. How are you doing? How's your team doing? How are things today?
Doing good. Right now, we're going through trials to try to find two new players for our team. So it's exciting times and, getting ready for the season, which is always exciting.
All right, awesome. So let's kind of go straight into that player history. I mean, we talked about some of your teams in the past just before we got started. Formerly Davenport, then you found yourself on Rain. That core went on to go to Omit, and then Take Flyte is where you are now. Why don't you talk us through some of your team history?
Yeah, well, even before Davenport, I played on some pretty decent teams and with some pretty good players, such as Silas is probably one of my favorite teammates before then. But when I joined DU, yeah, I think we were in main, I believe. I believe it was a main roster, and we rose up through the ranks and first collegiate team to make ECL, I believe. Maybe Robert Morris made it, but just lots of success with that roster. And for me, I like to stay on rosters for a prolonged time. I've never been really the player to be jumping from team to team. And even with the teams you listed recently, like they've always been the same core, same players. We just got new organizations to represent. So I think that's very important. And it's something that I like. I like building something with the same players and seeing how far we can get.
Nice. So it's kind of starting before that. When did you start playing CS? I remember in some of your videos you talked about how you started off as a lowly silver player, then climbing your way to now play in international lands. How's that going? Or how did it start?
Yeah, so I mean, man, it started back on a laptop back in probably like 2016 when I was maybe a high schooler. I'm not sure. I wasn't playing CS when I was younger, but yeah, I started out pretty much just like anyone else, just playing in matchmaking. I was on a laptop, didn't know what I was doing, spent probably like 1,000 hours, 2,000 hours just doing that grind. And eventually I heard about ESEA, Face It, and I was like, man, that intrigues me because I love Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike is just so like perfect to me and such a great game, just the way everything works. And it makes sense to me. So just, started grinding on Face It. And then eventually someone introduced me to what teams are, and how to do that. So I joined an open team, was very lucky to have some future ECL players on that roster too. So I got really lucky with my first teams. Even though we were all inexperienced, and kind of just progressed from there, made small steps, progressing the ladder one day at a time, one game at a time. And, there's ups and downs through every journey, but you got to start somewhere. And no matter what level you're at, no matter who you are, you can make it if you put in the work. Not everybody is the same. We all have different talents and skills. But if you can understand what your weaknesses are and your strengths are, anybody can, make a really good run in this scene and climb the ladder very high.
Nice. So kind of talking about that ladder, I mean, you said you started out in Maine as your first team, you said?
No, no. So
Or
I started
that
out
was Davenport, rather.
yeah, so that was Davenport. I started out in open, straight from the beginning with four other players that had no experience at that time. And I was lucky enough to have a very, very kind org owner that gave me kind of the mental and the motivation that I needed to become a player. He believed in me before I even believed in myself and knew what I wanted to do. So a lot of the credit honestly goes to my first org and my first org owner. But yeah, it's been a great run. It's been really fun so far.
Yeah, so now you find yourself as an opper for Take Flyte,
Yeah.
again, an ACL level team. Were you always an opper? Was that something that you wanted to, or were you kind of forced into the role?
Ah, man. So like I grew a lot on that first team I played on, and I was actually just a rifler, and I was probably the worst player on that team. And I think I started opping on my roster right before Davenport. And so for years now, I've been an opper, but it didn't start out that way. And I suggest that most players, if you're new to the competitive scene and trying to get into the game, don't limit yourself to one role because you don't know what you may be best at, or don't limit the opportunities that you could get because you're a new player. You're not a good player right now. So don't limit yourself when you don't need to. So that's my advice.
Yeah, no need to specialize so early on when
Yeah.
the world's your oyster in that regard. So like I said, ECL, what do you think, this is kind of changing direction a little bit, but kind of talking about that ladder, what do you think separates like a good advanced team from an ECL level team? What kind of factors or key things go into making that differential?
And it's hard because, to be honest, other than maybe ECL to Pro League, that is obviously like such a hard leap. Advanced to ECL is where so many players just run into that brick wall. Like it is so hard, it's cutthroat. At the end of the day, you always have to have a little bit of luck, but obviously working hard and creating a system that can work gives you that luck, right? Like the best team doesn't always win. So what I'd say separates like the hard suck advanced teams or the playoff advanced teams from teams that actually break through into ECL is honestly just having that chemistry with your team that you have and the right, I guess, like practice schedule. A lot of advanced teams, they think practice is just scrimming and then getting into the game, but actually the teams that sit there and get into server work and work on setups and play out all these rounds in their head before they even get into the game. And that's something at DU we did really well at. We would constantly be spending so many hours dry running our strats and scrimming against each other, like doing little battles on like overpass A site with two of our teammates attacking, three defending, vice versa, whatever. And that's truly to me what separates like the advanced teams from ECL teams, is taking that next step. And then also the amount of time you're actually practicing with your guys. So
awesome.
It's hard though. It's hard.
Yeah, taking that next step though for you though the only way up from here would be making it into Pro League. Realistically, what are your kind of goals as a player, long term or short term? And then how far do you think you can get personally? You're still a pretty young guy. I think you're only 21, right? So
yes, sir. So for me, my life's about to change a lot because I'm young right now, and my short-term goals are obviously I want to make playoffs again with Take Flyte, and I want to see how far we can go with this roster. But after this season, I'm actually taking a step back, and I'm going to go live in Europe and travel around Europe. And I really want to see if it's possible to join a European team, no matter what level it's at the end of that journey, or maybe early 2025, and get that experience. Because to me, just the way like North American CS is kind of going, it's brutal at the top. At the ECL level over here, it's brutal. It really is, and the opportunities are not the best, and the environment's not the best. Yeah, so I really think that for me, if I want to take this game seriously, and I do, and I love this game, some European XP would be so good for me, no matter what level it's at.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, moving to Europe, that's a pretty big deal, and it seems like you're taking that really seriously. But that must mean your assessment of the North American landscape must be pretty poor. I mean, what do you think of the scene generally speaking?
I think there's a lot of like attitude issue and like a lot of like toxicity or like negativity coming from the top, to be honest with you. Like without like calling out specific players, it's just not fun or productive for anybody. Like for me, I've learned a lot from players throughout the scene, and it kind of sucked kind of getting into FPL and seeing that environment, because these players you look up to and players that you think you're going to learn so much from just turn out to be some of like the most like mean-spirited, like toxic, rude people for no reason. And like I said, I'm not going to call anyone out, but the environment of NACS kind of just sucks. Like we all kind of want to see each other fail in a way, and it's like so stupid to me. Like, you know what I mean? If we want our region to succeed, we should be helping each other out and trying to learn from each other. But and I haven't been the best at it either. But like even in scrim environments at the top level, it's just not the best. And I'm sure you've heard Liquid or other top teams complaining in the past about how bad scrimming is, and it's just like nobody wants to get better. Like nobody wants to help each other grow and learn. And I don't know. Like it's a pretty pessimistic look at it, but and there's hope. There is hope. Like I don't mean to just be a pessimist, but like there could be light at the end of the tunnel. But we'll see. We'll see how things go.
Yeah, I'm hoping that a lot of the cash injection from a lot of these organizations, like the M80s, like the wild cards, kind of coming in, is going to be that fuel that the players need to kind of turn thing around. But you talked about attitude. Would you say that's like the key weakness of NACS right now, or is there anything that the scene really needs a boost of?
Yeah, I just I don't know. I do think that's a big problem, and something that like a lot of top teams and players struggle with. And I don't know, it just creates an environment where players that are coming up through the scene aren't brought into like the top player community, or like they're not welcomed, and instead they're just looked at as awful players and horrible
Gatekept
people
in a way, right?
Yeah, it is. It's total gatekeeping, like totally. And it's something that I've seen time and time again. And it's just like, man, like if we actually want to get better, that's got to change. And I don't know. It just starts with us as players. And like I said, I'm not perfect either. Like I've got tons of problems too and everything, but it is just something in general that the ECL level here struggles with a lot. So yeah, I want to see that get better. But right now it's just really hard because like it's just so toxic in this scene.
Nice. So, well, not nice, but
Yeah.
moving
Yeah.
on. You said you're able to work with a lot of players kind of through the ladder climb. Is there any
Mhm.
players that you really loved working with, or that you could hope you could work with again in the future, or even players that you admire that you'd love to play with moving forward?
I think one of my favorite teammates was Silas. If you know who Silas is, he can't play UCL right now because of his schedule, but he's still in FPL. And I played with him back in Maine, and he's got to be one of my favorite teammates. Just super hard, super good work ethic, and just a very good player, and all around a very nice person. And if we had more people like that in the scene, we'd be great. So yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of good teammates though throughout the years, and I've learned a lot from them. So it's hard to choose specific ones, but he's definitely been one that I've learned so much from.
All right. So, kind of taking a step back and talking about your collegiate career, because I think Davenport
Mm.
was was your longest stint on a HLTV rated team. Um, and it's quite the storyline. I don't know if how many people followed it, but there was a lot of initial success, touted as possibly the best university team to ever play, like escaping the rungs of NACE and going on to ESCA and playing against real teams and scrimming properly. But what do you think kind of led to its demise and its eventual withdrawal from CS altogether? I mean, eventually they started picking up players who weren't even part of the university system, the
Yeah.
Austin Pugs, things like that. Kind
Yeah.
of what's the kind of story there?
I without getting into like super detail because it's not necessary for to share. But I mean, there was a lot of reasons the demise came, and it was kind of inevitable with the decisions made. I'm a little biased. Like I think one of the most important factors was cutting me for or benching me for no reason, or like for no reason. Like what I mean. Like I think that led to a lot of it, but it just showed the overall decision making that was going on at that time, and yeah, there was countless issues, and I don't think it's important to get into it, but just bad decision making led to the demise of the whole program. The program was set up for success. It really was. Um, but yeah, in my opinion, it was just probably the worst move they could have made benching me. And obviously, I'm biased, but like we had just one advance with that roster, for reference, and like we had a lot of potential, a lot of good things going, and essentially the program just shifted a lot as far as like what their ideas and plans were, and they ended up picking up non-collegiate players for the roster, and it kind of just like ruined the identity of that team, and combined with like external stresses and stuff like that, that it was never meant to be. Like it just wasn't. After those kind of decisions, like the program and the roster is never going to succeed. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and that's why I decided it wasn't worth my time to stick it out at the school and the program after being benched, because in my opinion, like and there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that I don't want to share, and
Of
like,
course.
but I kind of saw the writing on the wall that this is just going to be a failure, and I think a lot of other students had as well, and just overall, there was a lot of promises, not just to me but other people, that just were never met, and I kind of look at it as like a utopia. Like on the outside, everyone thinks it's great and going well, and then on the inside, it's like internal like hell for every player, coach, person inside, and we're all just smiling and acting like it's good, but it was never meant to last.
Yeah, I think university systems can be tough. I mean, personally, I've worked
Yeah.
with Florida International
Mm.
University, kind of seeing how they
Mm.
develop their esports program, and there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of layers that you kind of have to
Yeah.
go through to make even simple things happen, and it can be really hard to have your voice be heard.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
But kind of talking about collegiate, I mean, other games like Rocket League, like Valorant, have really done a
Mhm.
good job of integrating the collegiate level play into their ecosystems. Is that something that Counter Strike should aim to do? Why or why not? What do you think the advantages or disadvantages are of playing in a collegiate team?
I think I think it would be good. I really do. But I think the next step that needs to happen is like for Counter-Strike is public universities being able to offer the same kind of benefits that the private universities can. As far as like, your big public universities that already have thousands, tens of thousands of students attending, if Counter-Strike were to ever be actually viable in the collegiate scene, it would need to be something big from those schools, in my opinion. With these private universities, it kind of just, they always just crumble in a way. You know what I mean? Time and time again, you just see different programs failing to actually break through. I do think that it would be great for the teams to actually be integrated into the actual scene. At the peak of when I was at DU, there was so many good programs. There was Michigan State, us, maybe Drexel, other teams that were actually playing in ESEA play against teams. And that's the way to go, in my opinion, because you're actually pushing yourself. You're actually playing against players that are going to be salaried, players that have experience. And I think that's when people actually start taking your team seriously. Unfortunately, right now, the level of play in like NACE and other divisions for Counter-Strike just isn't there. You do have some good players, but overall, it's just NACE is the league like that. They're doing the best they can. Like, it's not on them at all, but the level of competition, the seriousness is just not there yet. So I would definitely recommend for any collegiate rosters, programs out there, sign up for NACE, try to get your teams to play on ESEA, play other tournaments together, and that's where you're really going to grow and see a lot of success.
Awesome. And you attended Davenport University full-time, or was it kind of to go there to play Counter-Strike and also get a degree? Or
Yeah, so, I mean, I took it very seriously. I attended the school. I, went to my classes there, did everything in person, and it got to the point where we were actually traveling a lot and going to different events, doing all this, that I actually still attended the school like in person. I lived there, but switched to online schooling so that I would never miss tests, never miss exams. And, I took my schooling very seriously and did the best I could. And it was a good time.
So in regards to kind of like your work-life balance at this point, I mean, again, you're still a pretty young guy. It could be a big decision to make to invest all your time into, content creation and going pro. Or also kind of making sure you have that fallback plan of having a degree and some other something in the background. I'm sure that was kind of a tough conversation probably to have with your family as well. Can you kind of talk us through that thought process?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of realized while I was at DU that content is so important, and especially if you want to last in this scene, you don't always know what's going to happen to you competitive wise. Like, you might get benched from your roster, you could have an injury in real life that prevents you from playing. There's so many unknown factors, so you need to have different options. Luckily, I've been blessed enough to have a family that supports me through everything. They're happy for me no matter what I choose to do, and the content's kind of given me a route that's not traditional. And I haven't locked out schooling as I haven't shut down the idea of schooling for my future. But right now with content, everything I do is just very successful. So there's no point for me to load my schedule up even more. But I would suggest that, for players that are trying to do the whole collegiate and compete at the same time, it's totally possible. But you need to make sure that you're taking everything seriously. You're scheduling things out and not stressing yourself out by procrastinating and doing stuff like that, because it's going to be the death of you if you leave everything the last second. You don't take your health seriously and stuff like that. It's never going to work, and it's never going to last. So it's possible, but you just got to have the right mentality.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about content creation there. So let's kind of shift gears and start talking about, your success so far as a content creator, right? I mean, you're doing a lot of these tutorials, a lot of introductions, especially for new players, kind of filling that niche that, like, for example, like the War Owls filled out back in the day, right?
Yeah.
What would you say like your favorite type of content is to make? This could be long form, short form, or it could be topics, anything like that.
I do like teaching. I think teaching is fun. Unfortunately, I do like doing more in-depth stuff, but unfortunately the way like YouTube and most things work right now, it's like very beginner heavy is what actually gets views and what can actually build your channel. So I think I do like doing the in-depth guides, but overall I see the most success on doing just like the basic stuff that everyone wants to see, everyone wants to learn. And to me, I find that joy because when I first started playing the game, I didn't understand any of this, right? Like I was that player that had no clue what they were doing and didn't look anything up and played thousands of hours in CS on the worst settings, not knowing anything. So I find joy like actually helping people and seeing comments where people are like, oh, like I ranked up so fast because I listened to your tips, and that makes me feel so good because I'm helping somebody else play the game that I love so much. So I do like the beginner stuff a lot.
Yeah, as you said, there's a really big market for it, so it's not surprising that you're part of a larger community of content creators that focus on helping out new players. How would you say that, or How would you differentiate yourself from other content creators, and what sets your content apart from other CS related content?
Yeah, so one of my biggest focuses from the beginning, before I had any platform, before I had like any of the followers, was getting people the facial recognition, getting people familiar with me. Because if they don't, in my opinion, if they don't see who you are and understand you as a person, it's very hard for them to come back and keep wanting to watch your stuff, because at the end of the day, you're just another faceless video on the internet. But when people can actually like get that connection with you and see who you are as a person, I think it's a lot easier to build a community and build people that actually want to see what you're doing. So I like showing that. It's been a big focus forever for me, and it's helped me out a lot when I go to real life events and things that involve the CS community, and it makes me happy knowing people can kind of know me before even getting to know me.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. So talking about your audience, as you said, right? Your biggest following is on TikTok, which is a short form content. I think the max is like 3 minutes or something like that. How do you deal with not only audience capture per like piece of content, but also audience retention, so they keep coming back to your next piece?
Yeah, so TikTok is an interesting platform. All these platforms are different in each way. So if, like for YouTube, like I said, I focus on educational stuff. So my whole thing is trying to provide actually useful content that people want to watch throughout the whole video, which can be hard because last year I did a video every single day, so I was getting burnt out. I was struggling with that. This year I want to shift into quality, so actually getting people excited for what I post. For TikTok, it's a little different. I find that on TikTok, people don't want to learn as much. They want to laugh, or they want to have that dopamine hit. So for me, it's like just posting things that make people laugh or that people find funny and making people smile. For me, that's my whole thing on TikTok, and I found so much success doing that. And getting people to return, it's hard, man. It's hard. That is the biggest challenge as you're in content creation is achieving that. So I'm still trying to figure out the formula for that, but a lot of it is on TikTok, the facial recognition. So when people are scrolling, they're like, oh, like that's that guy's video. That's CoJo's video. So it's all about that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Kind of keeping like a familiar face to kind of come back to.
Yep.
But how do you make sure that they're not coming back to the same content over and over again, right? So Counter-Strike has really remained unchanged, mostly on a fundamental level for the past 20 years. It's still the same game. A lot of the similar fundamentals going to, even with a new game, despite the many game changes, obviously. But like I said, with a really static game, how do you come up with new content ideas when I could watch a video from 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and get the same thing?
Yeah, man, it's hard. Trust me, it's hard, and it's hard, and that's something I struggled with last year a lot. But obviously, like with CS2 right now, we're able to have a lot of fresh stuff and everything. But it's just like it's hard, man, and a lot of it comes from. It's a good question. A lot of it comes from learning from other creators as well. Like for me, one of the big things is Nard out here has taught me so much, and you don't need to like reinvent the wheel. You don't need to have some crazy brand new idea. You just need to do a very good job of explaining a specific part of the game. And it's funny you asked that, because me and every other creator out there will actually reference these videos from 8 years ago to think, what did people 8 years ago want to learn about Counter-Strike? So, in a way, you're making a very similar video, a video on the same exact topic, but just trying to make it more relevant to today's game, today's time. Because you're right, things haven't changed, but even if something changes that much, it can make the game feel so much different and play out so much different. So it's just like, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's just like, understanding what people actually struggle with and making a similar video to it.
Gotcha. Are there any kind of content creators that you looked up to, or you currently look up to?
Yeah, I've got some content creators I look up to, and not all of them are even bigger than me. The content creators I look up to right now are Nard out here. He's taught me everything I know about social media, YouTube. He got me into the game of everything. Nicest guy out there. Kaze, he's a skins YouTuber. And then Louis, who actually played with me over in Romania. He's big into content, and I love all these guys' work ethic, who they are as a person. And the stuff I was telling you about the competitive scene and Counter-Strike, it's the complete opposite for content creation. I don't feel bad or have any bad negative opinions on anybody in the content scene because everyone is so nice and everyone has helped me and I love helping them. It's just a great community. So
Yeah,
content's great. Yeah.
yeah, I've been able to talk to a lot of people, and it's strange how like
Mm.
easy it is to get in contact or ask for advice.
Yeah.
And it's
Literally.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's kind of broaden the scope a little bit here. So we talked about a content creator that you looked up to. Are there any players that you've looked up to throughout your career?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. One of the players I actually love, like playing against, playing with, is Cooper, who's on Mythic. And it's funny, because he did used to be a competitor, but now he's in content creation. I love all the players that have this balance of both because for me that's been something that's always so important. So I look up to every single one of those guys that balance both and do that. So like, Flom, Cooper, all these guys, they really encourage me and give me validation for what I'm doing and give me a goal to work towards and something I can look at because a lot of them are much older than me too. And one thing I've always done throughout my career is always asking advice from people who are older than me or have more experience than me, because if I can learn through their mistakes, their success, it'll help me grow faster and help me like shortcut a lot of these problems and avoid a lot of problems that I might see in the future because of their teaching me. So those guys.
Yeah, actually got the chance to talk to Cooper for a little bit, and that was really interesting. I mean, the Mythic team in general has done a really good job of branding themselves as a semi-professional stream team, meme team type thing, and it's really worked out for them, and they've really had like their stay so far in NACS. But as a competitor, kind of going back to competition play, in the NA scene generally, do you think, or are there any players that we should be on the lookout for? Even you can mention yourself. Why? And who's your favorite so far as an up and comer?
I'll say me. I have a lot of years ahead of me, so I'll figure it out eventually, and I'll get my break. The players that are going to make it are the ones that are never going to give up. That are, a lot of players, they hit a roadblock and they feel bad. They don't make it. There's been a lot of players I've seen throughout the years that go from like open to ECL in 3 seasons somehow. But that first cut, that first benching, that first roadblock, they're just done. So players, I mean, honestly, it's very common. A lot of players are probably going to say it, but JBA is really a very talented player and has a lot of years ahead of him. I would be shocked if he doesn't ever end up on one of the top rosters and make it in the scene. He's a very good player. One of the guys that we may be potentially picking up for this season, I've seen so much good stuff from him already. He's won FPL a few weeks, and he's just overall very good. Is a player named Beaky. He's very talented in the scene and has the right mentality. So, I'd say a lot of these young players that are already having ECL experience, it's up to them. They're in the driver's seat. If they mess it up, it's because of their own decision making. Because they could be any player that they want to be. They have all the potential. It's up to them to secure it. So, yeah.
So, all right. So, kind of broadening the scope, and since we talk a lot about these new players, I think one thing that really kneecapped NA was the release of Valorant. We saw a lot of the tier 2 and 3 kind of shift their way over. In the university systems, we saw a lot of funding getting pulled from Counter-Strike and instead going into Valorant, and that's where a lot of players have gone on to. For me, as someone who was kind of trying to build a collegiate roster at the time, it was really frustrating when a new player would come on in and they'd be very, very good, ready for the team, but they would be like, well, there's just more opportunities in Valorant, so I'm just going to go there. And then before you know it, you're stuck with a bunch of people who enjoy Counter-Strike but don't really play it, or a bunch of lower level players. How has the release of Valorant, or actually better yet, what are your thoughts on Valorant? And from your perspective as like a tier 2 player, how has it affected the NA scene and you specifically?
I mean, I don't like Valorant. I don't have anything against it. It's just not a game that's ever interested me. I've never played it, surprisingly, and I don't know. It hurt the scene a lot. Like you said, like just in the collegiate scene and the professional scene and every aspect, the release of Valorant hurt Counter-Strike. It really did. Personally, yeah, like a lot of the funding was pulled. At the time, I saw the shift. There used to be a lot of tournaments in NA, and now there's barely any. It's really sad. Like there's barely any actual tournaments online or in person. They're actually picking up a lot, so that's one good thing. But a lot of the opportunity has been stripped away, so it's been difficult to see that. The only good thing is like the players that did stick it out and tried to get through that shift and didn't leave for Valorant saw a lot of success and climbed the ladder a lot faster than maybe they would have if that never happened. So that's the only good thing. That's silver lining.
All right. So as my final kind of interview question before we get into a little bit of a trivia game, um, your general diagnosis of the NA scene is somewhat pessimistic. I think it goes without saying. But let's say, what do you think? How do you think Counter Strike in North America is going to evolve in the next 3 to 5 years? Whether optimistically, pessimistically, is it uphill? Is it downhill? Anything?
I have hope. I really do have hope. I think that if we have the right leaders and the right people in the scene, I think people like Elige is a great example of somebody that I've learned a lot from personally. He's talked to me, he's messaged me for no reason. He has no reason to. I think if we have more people like that can push us in the right direction, the outlook is so encouraging. Like it really is. So I think it just depends on a lot of factors. But for me, I think that I don't think it can get worse in the next 3 to 5 years. I don't think that's possible. I might be wrong, but for me, I have a positive outlook. I think there's going to be more opportunity, more growth, more reason to play the game. And I think that we just need a healthy balance of competition, both in organizers, but because I think right now it's not necessarily bad. It kind of is bad. Like I want more leagues. I want more events that players can prove themselves in and have more opportunity. And the moment we have that, then we're set. So I don't know. I think it's encouraging. I think we have a lot of opportunity. I think that it'll just get better, in my opinion. So
awesome. Well, I do love the bit of optimism.
Yes.
But let's see how optimistic you are about some trivia questions. So we're going to start with some. I'll be sending these to you one at a time here. So our first question, and I send it to you. You have the multiple choices right there. So since the release of Counter-Strike Global Offensive, how many maps have there been, or how many maps have been played at majors? Is it 10, 11, 12, or 7?
All right, we can instantly get 7 off of there because obviously there's been different. I want to say that the 7 we have now: Train, Cobble, Hash. So there's at least 10. At least 10. Dust 2, 11. Oh, I don't know if there's been another one. Has there? Oh, okay, I'll go with 11. It might be 12, but I'll go with 11.
11 is correct.
Yeah,
and you nailed it. So the 4 maps are not in rotation: Train, Dust 2, Cache, and Cobble. And then, of course, our current map pool: Mirage, Inferno, Nuke, Overpass, Vertigo, Ancient, and Anubis. Nice. Sweet. So this one's a bit more of a personal question for you now. In the fall of 2022, Davenport achieved its highest world ranking at what rank?
Man, I don't know. I don't know if we played a lot of HLTV games, so I don't know if it was 70. It's definitely not 55. I don't know if we got as high as 76. It's either C or D. I'm gonna say C. I don't know if we actually achieved 76 in the world. I will say C.
The correct answer is indeed C. Level 100 in the world.
There we go. Nice.
All right. So the next question is a little bit more specific to you. How many HLTV rated teams have you played on?
Okay, this counts like all the different organizations, right?
Yeah, the different organizations.
Okay,
the org would say the same, but just any org listed on HLTV.
Okay, 6. It's 6.
Easy, correct.
Yeah,
nice.
Easy.
A little putt for you. Make it easy.
Yes.
All right. So the next question. This is about current events now. Who is the lowest rated team at the upcoming American R&R? Is it Pain, Odic, Wildcard, or Rocket?
It's definitely not Pain or Wildcard. I want to say I don't know anything about Odic. I don't know anything about them, so it could be them, and I just get this wrong. But I know Rocket is ranked pretty low, so I'll say Rocket.
It is indeed Team Rocket.
Yes,
ranked number 69 currently in the world.
Wow, that's still good. That's still good.
Quite good, I'd say. Yeah. Also, former Voxel players. They played in our recent event, so shout out to them.
There you go. Yeah.
And now the last question. You're currently, I believe you've had all of them correct so far, right? Yeah. So you're currently 4 for 4. Last one. Question number 5. Oh, let me drive it in. What was Take Flyte's world ranking according to HLTV upon your signing?
This one I might get wrong. It was bad. I know that. It was bad.
Just dropped Nifty, I believe, in their core.
Oh, wait. Okay, is this question, do you mean when Take Flyte signed our team, like my team?
Yes.
Okay, so what was their ranking or what was ours?
What was Take Flight? So if you go on HLTV and you look at the day you were
There.
signed,
Okay.
what is that
Okay.
ranking?
That is. I want to say it was B. I want to say this one's hard. I'll say it's B.
So close, not quite. 4 to 5. The correct answer is
Uh,
178. It's A.
wow. There we go. That
All
was a
right.
hard one. That
Well,
was a
4
hard
to
one.
5, definitely not bad at all.
That's
You know.
pretty good.
All right, Colin. I have one last question for you before we close this
Right.
interview. Again, thank you for coming on. I see you with the Team Liquid chair. You're sitting on that, but the question
Yes,
is if
sir.
a Team Liquid jersey is ever going to be on your back.
Oh, good question. Good question. Well, let's see. I'm 21 years old right now. I don't plan on leaving the scene. I'm a competitor at heart. I love competing. I'm gonna get this experience in EU. Man, I want to say yes. I really want to say yes. Not in a bad way, but I have a lot of confidence in myself. I'm not where I want to be right now, but man, like trust me, I'm not gonna stop working, and I've got at least 10 competitive years left in my life. So we'll see what we can do in those years and what breaks I can get, what I can achieve, and yeah, I really hope it can happen. I really do. So yes.
All right. Well, fantastic. Colin, CoJoMo, I think we're all following your storyline. You've done a really good job of making a name for yourself so far in NA, and I think we're all really excited to see what you do next. So, guys, thank you so
Yes,
much for
sir.
joining us. You guys at home, and again, thank you, Colin, for joining us here today on the 1v1.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for watching if you made it this far. If you want to see more stuff like this, or if you want to follow Colin's story, you guys can go ahead and like and subscribe this video, and you can follow both him and us on our socials, all linked in the description below. You guys have a great day, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.